How long answers do you want? About a minute and a half? Something like? Yeah, okay. Well, I guess the most difficult thing, of course, is to get yourself psyched up. You want to be at top peak performance, so no matter what you're doing during the day, it is all geared for that. For example, today I'll be wandering around the town of Great Falls. I'm going to go to the museum. I'm going to see a lot of things of this kind of lifestyle. But all the while I'm doing that, in the back of my head, I'm thinking about tonight at 8 o'clock, I've got to walk out on that stage and amuse 4,000 people. And that's a grave responsibility, and you do think about it. You're concerned about it. As you get closer to the performance, you go through a certain routine. For example, I vocalize every night. I have a tape recorder with a vocal teacher's 12 minutes of vocalizing on it, and I do that with him in the tape recorder for 12 minutes. Then I follow that by getting dressed, and there's kind of a routine to that. It's all timed. There's a certain time when I get out of the daytime suit into the tuxedo, and as that's happening, as I'm building up, the energy level starts to build, and you start to intensify your activities. You get all set, you get dressed, and then you're standing by and ready, and you're waiting for that music to start, and they say, now here's Ed, and you go out and hopefully capture their hearts. Well, the problem is always when you're traveling, the fact that you get used to certain musicians and the sound of an orchestra. And I was kind of spoiled because when I did this act originally, I worked with Tommy Newsom, and I used a lot of the NBC musicians. Well, everyone will admit they are the finest in the world. That's why they have the position they do to be in the NBC orchestra. They do most of the recordings, the jingles, the backgrounds for all the great singers. So you do get spoiled, and when you get out alone, someone sees your music, what we call the charts. When they see the charts for the first time, it takes them a while to really sink in and groove in. So you do have a little problem, and you're apprehensive about that. But normally you carry a conductor with you. Some of the bigger entertainers that do this for a living all the time have now carried, they carry all their rhythm section. They will carry maybe a lead trumpet, lead sax, and they supplement the local bands with that. But we've taken some chances, and we've been very fortunate. In Indianapolis, for example, I didn't even have a conductor. I took their regular conductor and their pianist and their orchestra, and I went through the charts with them. I'm not a musician, but at least I know how they're supposed to sound from hearing them enough times, and that worked. And here in Great Falls, I brought Norman Geller with me, who was a fine conductor, was with Ed Ames for a number of years. And he kind of whips the boys into shape and gives them the confidence to know that they're coming in on the downbeat now. But it's always a problem. It is a threat wherever you go, because you never know what you're going to encounter. And consequently, most acts wind up bringing along a drummer and bringing along a pianist and, of course, a conductor. So that you've got that principal sound is there supporting you at all times. Yeah, I find there is a kind of a similarity between Fields and myself. I grew up part of my life in Philadelphia, and he was from Philadelphia. But it's more in philosophy. I was always a youngster. I always would ask the question, why? Well, everybody does that, but I wanted to know why things had to be done that way. Why couldn't they be improved upon? And Fields, in his way, was kind of a balloon burster. He was always going against the establishment. I think that's why he's so very, very popular with the youngsters today, because he was the first one to say, listen, we used to do it that way, but maybe that's not the best way. This might be the best way. So there's a similarity there. Also, I guess in our professional life, Fields started out hawking vegetables with his father. His father had a grocery van. They would go around the neighborhood. I started out hawking newspapers for the Bayonne, New Jersey. I usually use Bayonne in my act somewhere because of that. And I was a newspaper boy selling papers on the street, yelling, with the headlines and whatnot. And then I got into the fair business quite early. I was a bingo announcer. When I was 15, I got a job working in the back of a sound truck announcing. Anything to do with a microphone fascinated me. And then I started working with carnivals and circuses with bingos. And then I graduated. You go up the scale in that lifestyle. I went to be a pitchman, a barker and a pitchman. And it was great training for what I'm doing now, because you do learn all of the facets of speaking. And performing. Fields, on the other hand, they say, this could be apocryphal, but they say that he would juggle his father's lemons and oranges and tomatoes and whatnot to be a juggler, and that he would be dropping them and breaking the tomatoes, and his father would be constantly battering him about the head, and that's where their dispute came, at which he left home. But at least he was starting to do his profession, and he became the world's greatest juggler. He went to his grave He died on Christmas Day, which is, I think, an interesting thing, 1946. But he went to his grave still holding 2 records as a juggler that no juggler has ever duplicated. I don't know what they were, but the number of plates he could keep in the air at one time or the number of objects. But he was a great juggler. And then, of course, used that timing later on in all of his performances. He was very adept with his hands at moving and catching his glove and saying, "Gadzooks," and that was all part of the juggling.